918 people. That is the number of people who died in a single jungle clearing in Guyana on the 17th of November, 1978, making it, at the time, the largest loss of American civilian life from a deliberate act in the nation's history. 276 of them were children. The man responsible held no military rank and commanded no army. He was a preacher, and the people who died following him into that clearing had for years called him something else entirely: father, family, home. This is the story of Jonestown, and of the psychological process that turned an entire community toward its own destruction. To understand what happened in Guyana, the story has to begin decades earlier, in Indiana. Because for most of the people who eventually died there, Jonestown did not start as a nightmare. It started as something that, for many of them, felt like the opposite. Jim Jones founded the People's Temple in the 1950s around a message that was, for its era, strikingly progressive. Racial integration at a time when many American churches remained segregated. Active outreach to the poor, the addicted, the elderly, and people who had been turned away by mainstream religious institutions. For many early members, particularly Black congregants who had experienced exclusion elsewhere, the temple represented something rare, a community that appeared to live by the values it preached. The temple relocated to California in the 1960s, eventually establishing itself in San Francisco, where membership grew into the thousands. Jones built relationships with prominent city officials and was appointed to a position on the San Francisco Housing Authority. From the outside, People's Temple looked less like a fringe movement and more like a respected civic institution with an unusually charismatic leader. Underneath that public image, a different structure was forming. New members consistently described a similar entry experience: immediate warmth, constant attention, a feeling of being noticed, valued, and needed, often for the first time in their lives. Psychologists refer to this pattern as love bombing, an intense, rapid outpouring of affection and inclusion directed at a new member, often before that person has had the opportunity to evaluate the group with any critical distance. For someone arriving lonely, grieving, or simply searching for purpose, the effect can feel less like persuasion and more like relief. One former member later described it this way: "For the first time," she said, "she felt like she belonged somewhere completely. And that feeling was more powerful than any argument anyone could have made to talk her out of staying." That sense of belonging became the foundation. What came next was designed to protect it. As members became more involved, the temple began encouraging distance from outside relationships. First gently, then as an expectation. Visits with family outside the temple were discouraged. Members were encouraged to live communally, to contribute their income to the church, and to spend the majority of their time on temple activities. Isolation, in psychological terms, serves a specific function. When a person's entire social world exists within a single group, that group becomes the only available source of feedback, comparison, and reality testing. The outside voices most likely to express concern, a parent, an old friend, are gradually removed from the equation, not through force, but through distance. By the mid-1970s, for thousands of members, the temple wasn't simply a significant part of life. For many, it had become the only frame of reference they had left. In 1974, the temple began building an agricultural settlement in a remote region of Guyana, on South America's northern coast. Jones described it to followers as a refuge, proof that the integrated, self-sufficient community he had always envisioned could exist somewhere America would never permit. By 1977, facing growing media scrutiny in California, including reporting that raised questions about the temple's finances and internal practices. Jones relocated permanently to Guyana, bringing the majority of the congregation with him. At its peak, Jonestown's population is estimated to have reached around 1,000 people. For new arrivals, the isolation that had developed gradually in California became absolute in Guyana. The settlement was reachable only after a journey of several days through dense jungle. Passports were frequently collected and held centrally. Outgoing mail was reviewed. Radio contact with the outside world was controlled by temple leadership. Within that isolation, a third mechanism took hold. Thought stopping describes techniques that interrupt doubt or critical reflection before it can fully form, often through constant activity, repetitive messaging, or environments that leave little room for private thought. Survivors recalled Jones delivering sermons broadcast over loudspeakers across the settlement, sometimes for hours, occasionally late into the night, disrupting sleep on a near-nightly basis. Public meetings sometimes involved members confessing personal doubts or critiquing one another in front of the group, creating an environment where private uncertainty felt unsafe to express, even internally. One survivor described the cumulative effect simply. There was no point in the day, she said, when a thought could be followed all the way to its end before something else demanded attention. Jones also held what he called white nights, late-night gatherings in which members were told an attack was imminent and were sometimes asked to rehearse a collective response that included drinking a liquid framed as poison as a test of loyalty. By the time the actual event occurred, the concept itself was for many residents no longer unfamiliar. In November 1978, U.S. Congressman Leo Ryan traveled to Jonestown with journalists and relatives of temple members to investigate reports of mistreatment and determine whether residents wished to leave. The visit initially appeared calm. Several residents spoke positively to Ryan's group about life in the settlement. But during the visit, a small number of residents quietly approached Ryan, asking to leave with him. This appears to have triggered what followed. As Ryan's group prepared to depart from a nearby airstrip on the 18th of November, armed temple members opened fire. Congressman Ryan and 4 others, including 3 journalists, were killed. Several more were wounded. Back at the main pavilion in Jonestown, Jones gathered the community. What followed was captured on an audio recording that survived and has since become one of the most extensively studied documents in the history of research into coercive groups. On the recording, Jones tells the assembled community that armed forces are coming, that children will be tortured, and that the only remaining option is what he calls revolutionary suicide. A mixture of cyanide and sedatives, dissolved in a powdered drink, was prepared at the pavilion. Survivor accounts describe armed guards stationed around the area. Parents were directed to administer the mixture to their children first. On the recording, at least one woman can be heard pushing back, arguing that the children, specifically, should be given a chance to live. Jones responds that there is no alternative. Within a matter of hours, 918 people were dead, including 276 children. A small number of residents survived, some by escaping into the surrounding jungle during the chaos, others because they were elsewhere in the settlement that day. Their accounts, combined with the recovered recording, would become the primary record of what happened inside that clearing. Jonestown fundamentally changed public understanding of what a cult could be and who could end up in one. Before 1978, the word carried a distant quality for most people, associated with fringe figures, rarely connected to anyone they might actually know. The people who died in Jonestown were teachers, nurses, retirees, factory workers, and children. Many had joined a movement that, at the outset, offered something genuinely meaningful: belonging, purpose, and a community that appeared to stand for justice. The case became a central reference point in research into coercive control, reframing it not as something that happens to unusually credulous people, but as a gradual process that can affect almost anyone, given the right combination of vulnerability, isolation, and sustained psychological pressure over time. The phrase that entered popular culture afterward, about drinking the Kool-Aid, has long been a point of frustration for survivors, many of whom note that the actual drink was a different brand entirely, and that the phrase reduces what was, for the overwhelming majority of victims, not a choice, but a killing. At what point do you think the outcome at Jonestown became unavoidable, and could anything have changed it after that point? Tell me below. Subscribe. Next, a self-help empire that secretly branded its members.